if you're a police officer, you can't, defend yourself or do anything like that because you could end up losing your job.
Yeah.
So, but I say definitely thank you for your word. Definitely, I say I know it's necessary. So,
well, you're more than welcome to tell your story because that's why we have Voices to Be Heard. I think, when we talk about things here on Voices to Be Heard, I think the reason why we do this is so people can hear the stories and know that it relates to someone. So if you don't mind, you can get right in. You don't have to give your brother's name. You don't have to give your name. But tell us the story of how your brother was abused. Oh, look. And we get video. Go ahead. You're on mute.
He's not married to that person anymore, but, often, a woman, I guess she can say that somebody's abusing her, but when the police showed up, she didn't have any marks on him, but he had cuts all on him, and they ended up removing her, but that was in Charles County. That wasn't in Prince George's County. Now, I know, it's been an other hand, I guess, when people call them Prince George's County and they take possibly maybe what the woman has, shared. And that's not saying that things does not happen, but sometimes, by being a female, people get sorry, the relationship is over. A person could say, hey, he did this. And I met a mother who lost her son because a woman called, the police, and he was walking his dog and he came back home. He was on his way back home and he ended up getting shot by the police because the young lady said he had a gun and he had no weapon on him.
Wow.
But he had walked the dog. She had said, hey, they was, fighting or whatever. He didn't even know what had happened. According to the records or whatever the case may be.
So,
but he was,
so you're actually, it's almost like there was an altercation between the two people. He took his dog out for a walk to probably get away from the situation. She calls the police, and then they shoot him because she had told the police he had access to a gun, or did he have a gun? Either way,
they was already ready for him when he came back.
They were already ready for him because and that happens. Does this person have access to a gun? The answer is yes. Without explaining, he didn't take it with him, or I don't know if he has it with him. Maybe she said, I don't know if he has it with him. Does he have access to a gun? The answer is yes. Well, does he have it with him? I don't know.
Right. Yeah, so I have a lot of different scenarios, and I definitely, love, appreciate women, but I know, sometimes men have, received an unfair share, and just, now that we talk about it, I said even like my daughter's father was a big-time football coach, and his, ex-wife had said that he had assaulted her and being a collegiate football coach. That messed up his career.
Yep.
And my whole thing is just because you don't want to be married and don't want the relationship anymore, work on that, but don't ruin anyone's career. And then after you ruin a career, then you say, hey, we need an income. He's not paying child support, but you caused him to lose a $250,000 job, for saying that he assaulted you and he wasn't a violent person, whatever the case may be. So if a person were out of a relationship, just get out of it. So I think that there need to be things in place, I guess, on both, sides. And I think for that woman who lost her son to the lady that made a false report, there should be some type of consequences, for that person because a life was lost.
At least be in jail. Yeah.
So I met the daughter this summer when we was out, doing, all the Black Lives Matter, rallies. And she talked about, hey, my father wasn't at my graduation. My father won't be at my wedding. Just because, him and a young lady broke up, he wanted out of it. His life didn't have to be lost from that. So I think even showing males, because I just saw the other day, a friend of mine, her 18-year-old cousin was gunned down in D.C., and that was all on the news. That was on Valentine's Day. So if people don't want the relationship, and maybe that's something that can be taught in school, those are just, interaction, because even if you think about being a kid, sometimes kids don't want to be children friends. You can't get mad. You can't force them to be your friend.
Right.
So I think, people just learning that early on, that sometimes you might not gel with people, but if you allow that behavior to continue, on without ever addressing it, it spills over to a person's adult life. Like, hey, that person's going to be with me, or I'm going to kill you, so sometimes people will play like that. Hey, we're not going to be together, I'm going to kill you. And then all of a sudden it's like people think somebody really, really going to kill me here. I don't want to be with you. It's not working, so why should you force me to be here? So, it's things like that. So I think that just having healthy relationship, and also not looking at your life like a movie. This is real life.
Right.
So I know they have things in movies, but then all of a sudden when you take somebody else's life, because we see it all the time, so it could be a female and you'd be like, oh, she was just so nice. And why would somebody, do that to them? But you don't know the psyche on the other person's end. Right. I think even us as family and friends, that we have to be a little more observant. So when you see your friend and she got a black eye, she got shades on, and there's no sun outside, why you wearing them shades? Right. That maybe, you have to ask those questions and be like, oh, I just like my shades, but it's pitch dark. Right. Or a person, always wearing makeup, they could be covering up something. So I think just asking, some of the questions, creating a safe space for that person, possibly could save lives. Because a lot of times, I'm saying, people just don't talk about it. They cover up. We watch what the movie, What Love Got to Do with It, and just seeing what Tina Turner actually went to. And she was a public figure, right? A person that had to show up on stage and perform. But she was in an abusive situation, as far as with her hair, her makeup, her body. But she did not allow her debate to stop. But even, saying that, I'm like, man, she went through a lot. Debate to perform and to make other people happy, but she was sad. And she had other people around her that saw how out of control, Ike was, but no one, was strong enough to even say, hey, girl, you can get out of this.
When it comes to Ike, there were so many people who witnessed Ike, right? But when you go into people's homes and it's the two couple, right? And somebody says one did something to the other, that's all we ever hear. Mm-hmm. We never hear what was their contributing factor, what was the circumstances. But we always stay very pointed on no one should put their hands on anybody. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's where a lot of women will say, well, he put his hands on me, and it goes from there. Mm-hmm. And even in your brother's situation, or the one when the cop shot the man with the dog, could he have put his hands on her first? Could she have put his hands on him first and then she called? Mm-hmm. Because we definitely give a lot of leeway to women going, no, they would never put their hands on the male.
No, women be welling on, man. I'm saying, we say it all the time. I'm saying, what the lady bust the window out the car. That was like a hit song, right? As far as females. So if you want to bait her, whether or not if you're going to touch a man or whatever, we've seen men cars spray painted, cut, right, key, mm-hmm, whatever. Vice versa. I'm saying you may see, may go out, you may see, a man, slap somebody. But then I've also witnessed, saying, I say, because with the domestic violence, it goes both ways. And I've been at, like different women events, and now, what you hear women, I guess, that are in, non-traditional relationships or whatever, and they get abused. I've been at a bathroom, I'm thinking that, hey, that it's just women and they're talking, and it's a woman and they're beating up another woman. Right. So what do you say about that? And then, I heard, like at a woman's retreat, woman, pouring out her heart saying that, hey, my mother wasn't accepting of this relationship. So a lot of times when I think those situations work the same. If you already isolated yourself from your family, you don't have a support. So that person already know, hey, I'm feeding you, I'm taking care of your children. Right. You don't have no job. So it's really no difference. So that person didn't have an outlet. She almost lost her children because that person had everything, was showing that basically that person was unfit. So we have those situations now. So if she said, hey, the police showed up, I guess when she called, and it was like, hey, it's just a woman. They thought it was going to be a man, so people are not even prepared to deal with that, but still, is that right? So, I guess, far as, when those situations happen, but she said that the police looked like, hey, so what you want me to do? It's two women. It's like it wasn't to lock the person up. It was, I thought it was a man, the child was having an altercation when you called or whatever. It was a distress call. Oh, y'all sisters, y'all friends. It's like, oh, it's just y'all just having a little spat. So I don't know. I just think that, mental health is real. I think that, people who have had to live with it and live in fear, the other person, harming them and not having a way out, because even the person that is the heaviest saying, hey, I killed your whole family.
Right.
So the person sitting there like, hey, I got to stay here. He know where my mama live. He know everybody that's important to me, and you're getting all the threats. So, we need to deal with those things.
And I think that's the thing. And Tamara, how do we express, we don't want you living in fear, because everyone's fear level is different. So fear is fear is fear. We shouldn't say, well, it wasn't that bad. I don't think that's a good thing to say. I don't think, like, if you were afraid, I don't think it was that bad. You almost undermine their own fear. And we should never undermine people's fear.
No, we should never do that. I think we all have our own, like you said, our own feelings toward what fear is and how we'll react, what are triggers. And we, as Latasha was mentioning earlier, we as friends and people that are close, we have to be able to be that support system or to recognize and allow that person to know, like, I'm not sure exactly what's going on and you may or may not want to tell me, but I'm telling you as a friend, as someone that's close to you, I'm letting you know that I see something's not right and I want to be here to help you get the help you need. And, fear can damage you, not only physically, but mentally as well. And as Latasha said, mental health is real. And as the abuser oftentimes has something that's going on, some mental trigger illness that's not quite working. And then that person, that whether male or female, also has that mental distress that needs to be addressed. And I think right now, it's more important than ever, I feel, because there are a lot of circumstances that we can't control. So this virus and this pandemic, on top of all the social unrest that's happened within the last year or so, are triggers and mentally draining. I know for me, I have been mentally and emotionally drained by what I'm seeing happening, aloud, and, people just don't care. And then just knowing the different changes that are happening personally with the pandemic and things I have to do and adjust and address my personal life, it's all stressful. And then on top of that, I'm complaining, but you think about those men and women who are going through all of those things, and then they're still in a toxic relationship in their home where they've been forced to stay and live. They never get a break. So I try to make that part of my prayer, that that person, whoever it is, just gets that relief and that release that they do need.
Let me ask you both ladies a question. Natasha, thank you for coming on Voices to Be Heard. We do this every other Wednesday. Voices to Be Heard. We like to hear the stories to be told, because in the stories we see ourselves. And as we see ourselves, we get to say that this is not just happening to only me, but yet I know there's a support system out there. We know there's a support system out there. So the question I have for anyone who's listening and watching or however, if you're afraid in a relationship, again, it's not the level of fear. And I want to emphasize, it's not the level of fear. But if you're afraid in a relationship, do you think that's a relationship that you can be in?
No.
Okay.
I don't think you should be in a relationship where you're fearful of your spouse or the environment. No. And that's in that relationship, and not only romantic, but that includes family and friends as well. That's relationships across.
So once the word fear is introduced into, like, I'm afraid of you, that relationship, do you think it's over? It is over, or okay.
Yeah,
I agree. I agree with that one. Definitely. Because real love casts out fear. You wouldn't have to, fear anybody. Nobody should have to make you afraid of them for you to.
love them.
That's like a form of control.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess when I think about that, it's a form of control, especially when you're grown up. Even as a child, you want your child to mind and listen to you.
Not be afraid of you.
Not to be afraid of you because you loved them or whatever the case may be, and you wouldn't bring any harm, to them. And I was, and I guess since we talked about it, maybe also DC has a different law than what Maryland had. Let's say if I lived in DC and I called and I say, hey, this person hit me, they take both people, they lock both people up that night. They're not going to just take one. They're not going to take my word over his word.
Okay.
So I think that they probably have less calls now. So I think the laws also plays a point in it also, I guess, with domestic violence. If you have tougher penalties, let's say if somebody witnessed it, I think people will probably stop doing it too. Or whatever, but if it's more like, hey, you asked for it or whatever, you plucked his nerves, but those type of things,
right.
Then a person be like, they feel like they have any support. But if you have things in place and if it's really happening and a person, is able to prove it, then they can get some type of, support. So I think a lot of it has something to do with the laws that's in place because people only would do what they're allowed to get away with. So if you have things in place, sometimes people are second guess, just like what I said about the job.
Right. So
maybe if it wasn't a job and if somebody was sitting there and you're going to knock that person out or whatever. But because that person respect their job or their position and they have enough, restraining power, they didn't lash out. But a person who had nothing to lose may have that same woman. And if you think about maybe our grandparents and different people, like, hey, you don't hit a girl. But then all of a sudden, when our parents became parents, they like, hey, if that person hits you, you defend yourself. So it's like, so it changed. No, I'm serious.
It did.
Because I'm like, I'm like, you hit a girl. It's like my mama told me, if she tough enough to hit, if she tough enough to give a punch, she tough enough to take a punch. So women started to change from what their parents told them. Like, hey, you don't hit her. So they got to know what the rules of engagement is, too, if you want to lash off. Because sometimes some of us do have bad tempers.
Yeah, and I think that goes to, you were kind of talking about it before, like having something implemented in schools. But I think it should be like problem resolution, like how to interact with people socially. I think it's easy for kids, I feel like nowadays, not to get those necessary gems when they're at school. And, people aren't necessarily going outside to play all the time. So it's more of I'm going to be indoors playing on a game or on my phone, on a computer, rather than getting those social skills and figuring out if I don't get along with said person, it is okay if I don't talk to them. Or I don't.
It's okay.
It is okay, and I know for sure that is a problem, and I not just to harp on like the younger people, but I think it's just something that along the years some people just don't grasp, and they have a sense of entitlement, that because you are with me or I am married to you, then I own you, ownership, and that doesn't exist for me. And so I'm praying that we are able to, and with our show here, and as we continue to talk to people and our friends, they are aware that, you know what, or, you know, some light bulb turns on, like, you know what, they were talking about this and this resonates with me because, yeah, he does try to control what I wear, who I talk to, who I'm hanging out with. And that is a sign of abuse. And again, abuse is not only in a romantic relationship, but again, family can be just as toxic, and friends can be just as toxic. And it's important for us to recognize that and not make ourselves part of it.
But a toxic situation, I feel you. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
You know, having you know, daughters, niece, goddaughters. You know, definitely I wouldn't want anybody to, you know, those are the things, hey, if anybody got to put their hand on you, if I'm not putting my hand on you, I don't want nobody else putting their hand on you.
Exactly.
You know, that and even with them, I think, you know, being clear, hey, if you have a problem with them and you feel like you have to do that, you know, come to me or whatever the case may be, because my family member's not going to be a punching bag, not for you. You know, whatever. If you're having a problem, let's talk about it, but don't put your hands on them. So I think even establishing that, you know, with people who want to interact, you know, with our loved ones and vice versa. You know, if it's a male child, hey, if you have a problem with them, hey, let's talk. You know, but I don't want you, you know, abusing, you know, my nephew or my brother. I don't want that.
Yeah.
You know, so if it's a problem, let's work it out or whatever the case may be. Because you see so many situations when people end up dead or in jail. It's an ugly situation. Somebody's going to lose.
Yeah.
You know, so if it's
it's specifically the black community, the black community, more often they end up dead quicker than they end up in jail.
Yep, it happens. Yeah, it's that quick. Yeah,
and that's what's sad, because we don't want our black people to not be able to call the police. But it's a tough call, isn't it?
It is.
Yep, very tough call, because if they coming,
they're coming.
They coming to kill. They be like blackmail.
Yeah,
exactly. They ready. It's like they ain't even taking any chances. And we witnessed what we saw at the Capitol. That we know that a lot of police officers can have good restraining power. But a lot of times,
and they just magically are able to restrain and let people come with weapons. Drawn. All of a sudden, we can talk things out.
And they never had any fear. I was like, man, they not afraid.
Wow.
They weren't afraid, yeah. But if with us, I'm saying they're afraid. So
they were some of the finest police officers in the country.
That was working that day. No, that day, I'm saying they had some model behavior. I'm like, wow, that's great restraining power.
Great.
I was impressed. Yeah, so I think, if we can teach our children how to deal with things that just don't work. Yeah. If it don't fit, don't force it. type of message. We teach people, hey, keep your hands to yourself. You may have to count backwards 100 to calm yourself down. Find some type of mechanism, because is it worth you going behind bars? Is it worth somebody having to go to a funeral, looking at somebody, you know, just because a person don't want to be with you, or things that work out?
Yeah. One of the things we talk about with domestic violence, and I'm glad you brought your comment on here, was really that males don't speak out on domestic violence. There's something that is just not widely spoken, and yet it is a part of domestic violence.
Even
if it's verbal.
No, it can be verbal for them, especially maybe if career-wise or if they not meeting the expectation. They get abused too, but you can't be like telling your boys, oh yeah, man, she's abusive. A lot of times if men say it, man, be like, man, y'all be like, leave her. There's too many other women out there. Y'all do try if y'all see or whatever, but a lot of times it is very silent. because you all are not men, I guess, if you all have feelings.
Right.
If you be like, man, hey, that hurt my feelings. Hey, I like the baby to do better. I want a baby to be there for my child. But every time I come, the person tear me down. Now, I'm trying to maintain my cool or whatever, but the person make me feel like Fred Flintstone when he used to shrink or whatever. One of those type of moments. But yeah, but you all have feelings too. So men have feelings too. We have feelings. So
yeah, I wish men would talk more about it, honestly, because I think that having a woman talk to you and demean you is horrible, and it's not okay. And that's regardless of your stature, because she is being abusive. And then I feel like you allow that to, as Natasha was saying, to roll over to your relationship with the kids, but then to roll over to your friendships and other relationships and just your actual well-being. And that's what this is. I mean, domestic violence is, I feel like, is an attack on the person, not only physically, but emotionally. And that is a destruction. Like, I can be completely stressed out and kill myself because of stress or due to stress. My body and my tempo is just deteriorating because of that. And that is for you not to feel 100%. I know as a woman, there are days I don't feel 100%, but if I also had someone telling me every day how horrible I was, although I didn't feel like I was that horrible, I would start believing that.
Start believing it.
Yeah, and those are things that, people say for your kids. You want to feed them with affirmations. And not
isn't this conversation that women most often have? Now, barring none, the flat out abusive people. I'm talking about the physical bang, bang, bang. That is, outside of that, women, when they don't feel like this man is doing what they believe he should be doing, is that undermining, or is that letting them know that they could be better? But the way they go about it is demeaning. And is that abusive?
Yeah, I think it's the way you approach it. So, like, if you are doing wrong as a man, and we're in a relationship, I should be able to have that conversation with you.
Okay.
If we said that we were going to save X amount of dollars, or you agreed to do something and you don't do it, we should be able to have that conversation. But
like you got the ball.
But if I can't have a simple conversation with you, and the only way I can communicate is to say how horrible of a person you are, and I don't know who raised you, just saying something. Stuff, then that is abusive, and that shouldn't be accepted.
Because I think it's as subtle as, and me and my wife were talking about this, I think it's as subtle as driving in the car and going, man, that was a dumb, who drives like that? That is ridiculous. I mean, those subtle comments, to me, is abusive.
Yeah. And it's hurtful. And again, I think mentally, that's going to be replaying in your mind.
That's my point, right?
So you're second guess yourself.
Yeah, even if she wasn't in the car, you will always be thinking like that. She would probably call me stupid,
right?
The way I changed that lane like that, and that's just not. It's just not okay. It's not okay across the board.
And I think we in our next week's show, a show like that, I think we will go more into that. I think it's the subtle comments. We've talked about some horrific abuse, and thank you, Latasha, for even bringing up the male issue with your brother and the other male. And I mean, and we try to be very equal, don't we? I think we try to be very equal, but we don't talk about the subtleties that builds up to it, just like slight comments. Like, you cooking that again? That's a hurtful comment.
It is. It's doing their best.
It's not even kind. Like, you come in the house and like, what, you cooking that again? Whoa. Like, so I think we ought to talk about slights and verbal uses of words that starts tearing people down.
Yeah, it's something that I think, we all may at some point or have at some point said something. You like, I shouldn't have said that. Like,
that's hurtful.
That didn't come out the right way, and I feel like it was hurtful. But I think some people intentionally do that, although they know it's going to, they know it's going to be hurtful, but they'll intentionally just say those things, and it's just I think man or woman, you have to set those boundaries and make sure you are not accepting someone talking to you any type of way. And I mean, I feel like, not to go off on a tangent, but that can be like at work. I often hear like where we feel their supervisors or, some superior will talk to them some type of way. And I've always, regardless of my position, I've always held the standard, like, one, I'm not your child.
Right.
That's just
hey,
right. And if I was your child, it would be wrong. But I'm just saying the boundary is I'm not your child. And two, like, you are not going to talk to me like that. So when you want to have the proper conversation, feel free to call me back. But right now,
it's not gonna work.
Okay, I'm not accepting.
Yeah. I've done that too.
Yeah,
I've done that.
Yeah, I've done that. Yeah,
somebody feel like they scolding you. I'm like, you're not gonna talk down to me.
No.
Yeah. So when you're not gonna yell at me.
You definitely are not going to yell. I will say in a second. You know what? Call me back when you want to have a conversation.
A real one, because it's not, because it's like you're not gonna yell at me, you're not gonna scold at me, because even if you're with a phone, you can feel it, like, hey, it's like your tone not right.
Yeah, and that's the boundary, and I know oftentimes probably in the workplace it's hard for you to set that boundary because you feel like you are going, you could potentially be fired.
Right, I need this job.
But if you don't, and I've seen other people accept that type of tone, if you don't, that person will continue to
doing it.
Mm-hmm. And they'll talk to that person that way, but they won't talk to me that way.
Right.
Which is because I've set that standard and that boundary. I wasn't disrespectful, but I'm letting them know and making them aware, like, you will not talk to me that way.
Even if
definitely not today.
Even if they don't talk to you that way, mm-hmm. And you see them talk to others that way, mm-hmm. you would have to think they want to talk to me that way. And even that's unacceptable. Like I know you want to call me this, I know you want to do this, but because I've set my boundaries with you, I still feel like you want to. Like, as soon as you leave me, you're gonna
know.
Right.
I know it. And you know what? I feel like when I was younger, I would be concerned about what people were going to say, like, after I left the room. But I would stress myself out if I was concerned about what everyone said. Like, listen, I know you're probably going to talk about me. You may not like me, and that is okay. And I am okay with that at this point. But I know, and I've been in rooms where it was an inappropriate tone. And I've had to say, like, okay, so I'm not sure what's going on here, but I'm going to remove myself because I think this is inappropriate. And I've definitely removed myself from that. And I mean, because we're all adults, if you're going to continue to allow someone to talk to you that way in that form, then that's your decision. But physically, I may or may not have put myself in harm's way sometimes trying to defend people. So I try not to do that, and I don't condone that, but I will say something for sure. If I see a physical abuse or a situation happening, I don't accept that, and I don't allow, like I said, I don't allow anyone to talk to me any type of way either.
I love my shows. I love this show. I love all my show. Voices to be heard. We talk about domestic issues, domestic violence, and get your voices out there. Let your voices be heard. You can always call in. You can chime in. You can email us in, and you can tell us your story, because we know in your story there's someone hearing your story and say, I too can get out of that, or that sounds just like me. And this is why we do Voices to be heard. Before we take off, Tamara, you want to say anything before we leave and see each other? March. That's the next show for Voices to be heard.
Can you believe this?
No.
I don't know. The year is escaping so quickly, but no, I'm just honored to be here. I'm glad we were able to talk and just have a different perspective as well. I know we don't talk as much about men, but it's very important that we share those stories. And again, it's important that those individual stories are heard so that it resonates and allows someone to see they're not in it by themselves. They're not unique. And there are people that are going through the same thing, that have gone through the same thing. And there are also people that are here to listen and to help. So always an honor to be with you, Dr. Paul, and a pleasure to meet you, Latasha.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. It was great. I know you just so happily popped on in, and here you are contributing. And I think that's what our service to humanity is contributing. And as long as people are out there serving humanity, we get better.
Yes.
Yes. But thank y'all for allowing me to speak. I said I thought I was coming back to another call, and I said, but I definitely I thought it was a great debate. Had a conversation with you all, and I definitely appreciate you all's work.
Thank you.
And hopefully, people listen and maybe apply some of the things. Maybe have some resources where people can get some help.
Yeah,
because I think that's what people need right now. So, a little help. So thank y'all for doing this.
Thank you. You everybody have a good night. God bless. Be safe.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.